Welcome back to another exciting episode of PowerTalk. I'm your host, Tom Power, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. Here on PowerTalk, we explore the fascinating stories of individuals who are not only leaders in their fields, but also trailblazers shaping the future. Today's guest is no exception. Earle G. Hall is an internationally celebrated entrepreneur, futurist, and innovator with a career spanning military service, cutting edge technology, and global leadership. As the president and CEO of Access.ai, he's leading the charge in responsible gaming and technological innovation. He's also a passionate advocate for blockchain, artificial intelligence, and neuroscience. In today's episode, we'll talk about Earle's journey from Placentia, Newfoundland to the global stage. Welcome, Earle.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Glad to have you. Earle, your story begins in the small community of Placentia, Newfoundland and Labrador. How did growing up in an outport community shape your values, and how do you think those early experiences influenced your leadership style today?
Well, for me, Placentia was the center of the universe, only to be matched by the naval base Argentia, which was a big part of me trying to understand the world. A crazy thing that I thought of while I was anticipating coming on our talk was probably the biggest thing that happened to me growing up was when I was in, let's say, my last year of high school. We were building a Christmas float. And some friends of mine said, Earle, why don't you have a look at this? We're applying to this thing called the military college. Coming from Placentia, coming from the family I come from, coming from the background I have, I really wasn't exposed to the outside world like some other people were, besides the encyclopedias that we had at home. And that was a trigger for me that set me on a life's journey that offers me a level of gratitude every day for the ups and downs that I live that I don't think I'd be able to explain how grateful I am for my journey. And it all circles back to how I was brought up. So things that the listeners, that if they're from an outport in Newfoundland, might remember. My dad wouldn't sit at the table until he made sure that the neighbors had food. Um, there was no such thing as doing something by yourself. If a neighbor was out fixing something on the side of their house, well, somebody showed up with a ladder, somebody else showed up with a hammer. When it snowed, the elderly neighbor, in my case, Mr. Whittle, didn't have to ask. There was a lineup of people to shovel off his pathway. So, in the community that I was brought up in, with incredible people like Mr. Patterson, our MHA, who was a kind of like a mentor in a certain sense, all of those people in a community where everybody is rich. And I say that with a smile. Everybody is rich because nobody has money. When you take money out of the equation, it's all about your heart, it's all about your integrity, and it's all about your community spirit. So, coming from the richest place I've ever been to in the world, I was brought up with values that I'm thankful that my mother kept an eye on me for all of my adult life. And she kept saying crazy things to me all the time, like, you better not lose your Newfoundland accent. And she kept saying things to me, keep me grounded. She goes, I saw you on that TV and you better stop that talking. And she'd say all kinds of things to me to make sure that I stayed grounded and that I never left Placentia. And I say that with a lump in my throat because I fly over Placentia a lot in my work. Because I'm always flying to Europe, always flying to Asia, always flying somewhere. And every time I fly over Placentia, now that we have internet, I always text my sister. I say, can you see I'm flashing the lights? But being that close to home so often and not being at home, one, it's heartbreaking. It creates a longing. But I'm probably the luckiest person I know because the values that I brought up with are exactly who I am today. And I tell you, there's no better place in the world than to grow up in an outport in Newfoundland, Canada.
Hmm. Hmm. And what lessons from your childhood have stayed with you and helped you navigate the challenges of your career?
Easy. That one's easy. That one is Tom Hall. My dad, get up early, go to bed late, work harder than everybody else, and never, ever, ever accept failure as at the end of the road. Failure is just feedback that you've got to do it better or differently. And I'd say I'd match that with my mother always said, and you'd have to understand the language from where I'm from, but she'll say, never hesitate to do a turn for a neighbor. A turn is kind of like a favor without expecting anything back. It's a hard word probably to translate into Canadian English, but doing a turn. So one of the things that maybe other cultures outside of Newfoundland find difficult to adapt to people like me, Newfoundlanders, is that we're always doing things for free. We're always doing things to help out, and there's no strings attached. And I was brought up that way very staunchly by my mother. And it's one of the things that I still do today. See me show up at the craziest places on the planet, giving a hand, doing a turn. And of course, I don't expect anything in return because that's the culture of the outports that I'm from. I don't think it was my childhood because when I look across the road to the family, that was my second family called the Browns. They had the same culture. When I looked down the street at the Bruces that broke my heart and moved away to Alberta when I was a young kid, they had the same culture. So the thing is there's something in the DNA, there's something in the blood in Newfoundland that obliges you to be a human first, an entrepreneur second, and anything else third, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. That's
Because I don't take any credit for that. And when people try to give me accolades for this stuff, I run away from it because it was given to me. I didn't develop this.
no.
Yes, I did accept it. Yes, I did cultivate it, but it was given to me on a silver platter by the place where I'm from. So they deserve the recognition and not me.
Mm-hmm. You attended the prestigious Royal Military College of Canada
Yeah.
and served as a Canadian military officer. How did the discipline, structure, and camaraderie of military life prepare you for your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I could say that I was not prepared for the military college. I was not prepared to go there in French. I was not prepared to scratch, bite, and scream to survive, thrive, and actually graduate from that place where like 1 in 10 graduate. Um, but that being said, the military college is probably the most awesome thing anybody can do in their entire life. I don't care what you want to do in life. Do you want to be a politician, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a pilot, an artiste, whatever you want to be? The military college is by far the best place to start because it will mold you into a human being that you had absolutely no idea that you can become. What I had to learn about and find inside of myself to succeed. And the guardian angels that were put on my way, like Joe Lund, and I could go on about these people forever. Romeo Dallaire, all of these people that were put on my path to make it through. When I started out my entrepreneurial journey, I had a toolbox that is hard to describe to somebody who did not live the intense overbearing amount of stress to learn how to prioritize, structure, deploy in a chronological manner, how to choose between 100 priorities, which is the one that you had to do now. And probably the thing that the Army enhanced that oh, my mother was born on. It's always act now. So the Army taught me action is the true merit of success, and hesitation can get you killed. So in the entrepreneurial world, there's something I learned at an incredible school I went to in Quebec City called the National Academy of Public Administration. A teacher that absolutely changed my life. His name is Earle Jacob in Montreal. He taught us one of the great theories about finding the first best decision. And that really sums up what I learned in the Army, because a lot of people overthink, they hesitate, they doubt themselves, they get consumed by fear, and they miss their window of opportunity. Whereas in entrepreneurship is built on a very simple principle. It's called luck. And luck is hard work and the courage to make the decision faster than any rational human would ever make a decision. In other words, it's like jumping out of a plane and having the faith that you're going to figure out how to build a parachute on the way down. So I think I learned a lot of other things like how to not sleep, but really hesitation is something that really destroys a lot of entrepreneurs. Courage to accept failure 100 times just as part of the journey. I know it's hard on the ego, but when you get over that part of failure, failure is just, yeah, next slide, let's keep going. Who cares? Yeah, let's go. So I think they're the things that I learned because in the Army, they teach you how to fail fast and how to fail a lot.
Can you share a specific moment during your military career that profoundly influenced your perspective on leadership or problem solving?
Yeah. Um, so there's a lot of things I could say about my military career, but here's the hardest one. And it's an age-old rivalry in the Army. So can you imagine as a 20-year-old, you show up green, smelling like the new smell of a car, no experience, but you've got this gold on your shoulder that says you're in charge, but you know nothing. And all of a sudden walks through the door a warrant officer. And a warrant officer is kind of like a god in the Army. It's like almost, it's the third highest rank in the Army. And this warrant officer shows up with 20 to 30 years experience, but you're his boss. It is one of the most traumatic moments I've ever lived in my whole life. Because I'm there, I'm the boss, I'm the leader. But one, I don't know anything. I've never done this job before. I have no experience. And the person I'm supposed to be leading has more experience than everybody put together. And it's a whole process that you have to go through to learn that the leader is the most incompetent person on the team. That the leader has to learn that their secret weapon that they hold is their ability to listen. It's their ability to understand. Because you get paid to make the decision. But the quality of your decision is not based on you. It's based on how smart you are to gather as much as you can from the team, to listen to the expertise that you have, and then close your eyes and throw the dart at the dashboard. But that was the most traumatic thing I've ever seen, and it's unfathomable to think that the system is built that way. That they just roll you out of the truck and go, "Good luck, kid." You're the kid in charge. And by the way, you're the most junior person on the whole team. I was blessed, and I'm name calling on our talk today because I love to send credit where credit is due. And the guy's name is Warrant Officer Willett, and he just pulled me off to the side and he goes, "Listen, kid, you know nothing," but he goes, "If you're not stupid, I'll protect you, and you'll be okay." And it kind of felt like I was being hugged by a big teddy bear. And I said, "Okay, well, maybe I won't die today." And that person was one of the people, like there's Warrant Officer Nadon as well as another one, and Tremblay, but there's people that just came around me. And when people ask me the question, "Earle, what do you credit your success for?" And I say, well, I can name to you right now, it's about 18 guardian angels that I've mapped through my whole life that have just shown up, of which one of the very first was Brother Griffin at Laval High School in Placentia. He was number one. So my path is really not that impressive because my path is just listening to the guardian angels that nudged me along. And all I had to do was not sleep and work harder than everybody else. And that's easy.
Hmm. Hmm. After serving in the military, you transitioned to the world of technology and entrepreneurship.
Yep.
What sparked that shift, and how did you approach entering an entirely new field?
So first of all, I'm a sucker for punishment. I love new things, and it's almost a sickness how much I love new things. I'm not ADHD, but I love learning, which obliges me to consume things very, very fast. But I didn't shift into technology from the army. And I'm glad I brought up Brother Griffin before because Brother Griffin is really one of the people, and I pray to God somehow he hears this, but he's one of the people responsible for my whole life because he's the guy who rolled in the computer in the back of the class and everybody's looking, what is this thing? He's the guy who gave me the nudge to learn how to program a sine curve. And in high school, back in the 80s, the early 80s, I developed a passion for computers. One, I'm a very introverted person, which most people would never believe, but I'm like on the highest level of Myers Briggs of introverted. And this computer became my safe place. So clicking on these buttons and creating things in the screen became an ultimate passion of mine. The army was by accident. A guy that I owe a lot to, his name is Gary Murray in Newfoundland, and Susan Murray, I owe a lot for them because they were the ones who nudged me to say, you might want to think about the Royal Military College. I took a detour into the army to get an education and to become a man. But as soon as I got out, I went right back into my core passion, which is into tech. I was training, consulting, building tech, and my career ever since then has been in tech.
Um, how did your military background help you overcome any challenges you faced when you got into tech?
Once again, if there's one thing that's a constant in the tech world, is nothing ever works. So failure is an absolute given when you're in the technology world. So if you're as crazy to be an entrepreneur in tech, you have to realize that you're going to be failing 9 times out of 10, and nothing's ever going to be working the right way. And you're always going to have to put 10 times more work into anything to get it to work. So I won't say the tech world was a walk in the park compared to the army, but the tech world is easier for me than the army because if you're accustomed to failure, if you're accustomed to high pressure, if you're accustomed to not sleeping, if you're accustomed to the almost the it's not even a passion, the obsession to build and deliver. Well, the army gave me all of those tools because the army, the obsession to deliver results, Like, you never win a war based on effort, right? So in the civilian world that I'm in, uh, results are the only thing matter.
Access.ai is a cloud-based fintech company operating in over 40 countries. What inspired you to create Access, and how did you identify the need for innovation in the gaming industry?
Yeah, I have a lot of cynical answers. Like, I don't know, but where I'm from, I learned cynicism before I learned humor. So I have a lot of crazy answers, but the core issue is that I was asked 12 years ago my opinion on the future of the casino industry. And it seemed very simple for me back then that it had to be cloud because everything was going internet. It had to be cashless because we were already starting to do payments online and stuff like that. And for many years, my passion has been artificial intelligence. I used to teach a primary form of artificial intelligence for 10 years at the master's degree level in Quebec. So for me, it was a given that the world was going cloud, the world was going cashless, the world was going AI. And at that time, governments were starting to get serious about the two biggest negative connotations of the casino industry. One is the potential for addiction. The potential for addiction is lower than alcohol. Everything's lower than cigarettes. It's lower than alcohol, but it's still too high, in my opinion. And the second thing is casinos were known for illicit activities as money laundering. And there's things for me that, from a technology point, I thought were quite simple to eradicate. So when a bunch of investors came together and said, Earle, will you build this project? I said, yeah, sure, let's go for it. So I resigned from my own company, found an absolutely incredible human being to take over the company that I'd been building with my old team. I jumped over into this new project, and we haven't really had any sleep since. We've been building something that is way more than an obsession because it's our way to transform the casino industry into a simple form of entertainment because the illicit and the risk is eliminated through predicting the behavior of the person that is sitting at the machine. So this is really turned into kind of like a battle cry, if I could use a military term. I have the most amazing team I've ever had in my whole career. These people, their hearts beat for this mission because we know our job is to make our world a better place.
Days, how did you overcome them?
So this is a hardcore question for the entrepreneurs. So first of all, a company is cash. So if you're not focused on raising the funds, you'll miss the boat. So if you're bootstrapped, that's fine. But what we had to do, we've raised about $40 million so far building what we're doing because we're building something a lot larger than most companies. But the obstacles in the beginning are always getting clients. So if you've got the influx of investor funds on the go, the very second thing that I always focused on, and might sound crazy, but tech has to be second to clients. Most people like to spend all of their money on tech or spend all of their money on their little store. And when they open the door to the store, they have no money for marketing, they know clients are coming, and the store just closes down. So when we started out this adventure, my very first reflex was to tell my board, now you're going to find this crazy, but I'm getting in the plane and I'm coming back when I have 10 or 15 clients. So the very first thing, even though the tech was still in alpha phase, if I could say that, we had to find partners to develop the technology with. And
Mhm.
I was brought up in the Army. Leadership is from the front. So the first person to the airplane was always me. And I have the little two on the 2 million miles with Air Canada to prove it. And I have like gazillion miles with other airlines. But the point is the obstacles are always the same. Number one is, do you have the cash to build? Number two, are you focused on finding the clients to test it, try it out, use it, give you the feedback, accept, have the humility that it doesn't work the way they want, it doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, and just build, build, build. My first 7 clients are here because they trusted me when it didn't work. It worked half the time. It didn't work the way it was supposed to. And we just kept at it day and night until we got it to a place where we don't even remember how bad it was in the beginning. So the obstacles for all entrepreneurs are the same. Everybody has great ideas. Everybody has dreams. But cash is always king and queen. Clients are always second, because you're going to be building tech for a lifetime. Like right now, if I look, we're 12 years in, we've got 20% of my vision deployed. 20%. So when we go out to market for the next 20 to $30 million to raise, hopefully we can get ourselves to about 30 to 40% of the vision. And then it will accelerate from there. But in the world we're in today, I'm just so excited that this always comes out facetious, and I don't know how to say it any different, but I'm just so glad the world is catching up to us, because when we started off saying everybody's going to be cloud, everybody's going to be cashless, everybody's going to be AI, there's not very many people that believe what we were saying, and most people just laughed at us. But if you have a dream, and if you have the right investors around you, and if you can find the clients to prove you're right, all you'd have to do then is survive until the world catches up.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, as chairman of IGSA, you were deeply involved in establishing global standards for the gaming industry. Why are standards and protocols so critical, especially in a rapidly evolving sector like gaming?
So the thing about standards is there's let's say there's 3 types. There's standards to make sure that everybody in the industry is honest and integral. That's one type of standards. There's other standards of how you operate a casino to make sure that it runs by a series of protocols to keep people safe. But the International Standards Association that had the privilege of chairing regrouped all of the technology companies worldwide, where we were agreeing on languages, protocols for machines, the way of retrieving data, the way of understanding data, the way of setting up systems. And this was all geared at forging towards a universality of information. I make no secret that my primary passion besides neuroscience is data, because the truth is always in the data. If you have enough information, you can find out anything. And it was a true privilege for even the size of access to be able to gravitate through the levels of that organization, where I was considered and voted and elected as the chairman for the tenure that I had. And I'm really happy that while I was there, we managed to focus the language on using data as a tool to learn how to become cyber safe, learn how to remove addiction, learn how to investigate where money laundering comes from, and actually say it's not only about the protocols, but we've got to start getting intelligent about how to use the data to make the industry safer, more profitable, and a lot more fun, which is, like I said, if I had a tattoo, which I don't, it'd probably be that one. And the Newfoundland flag, of course.
How do you balance innovation and regulation in an industry that thrives on creativity and technological advancements?
The way the gaming industry is structured is you have non-regulated markets, you have semi-regulated markets, and you have heavy regulated markets. So I guess it's like in any other industry, you have creativity that happens in the non-regulated markets. So people will take their technology to places where they don't have to go get 15 certifications, and they'll go test it out and see if it works. Then they'll take it to a semi-regulated market and start the certification process. And once the technology is tried and true, that's where you bring it into the heavily regulated markets, because the level of certification, the onus to prove every single line of code functions properly. So the gaming industry is pretty much self-organized to give you a pass to make it to the big leagues. So you
Okay.
start out in the garage league, then you head to the peewees. But when you're lucky enough, you're strong enough, you have the right investors, then you head into the big leagues. So the industry is pretty much organized that way. And I don't want to mention the illegal markets, because that's something that I really don't like to talk about, because they should just be shut down. And the onus is on the politicians to do that.
Access.ai has become a leader in promoting responsible gaming and fighting money laundering. What are some of the key technologies and strategies your company uses to tackle these issues?
Thomas, it's so simple. So we built a mini computer. It's an IoT device that we put inside of every gaming machine. So we pick up every single piece of data in real time. We know how fast the person is clicking. We know the time between their clicks. We know how fast they're putting money in the machine. We know how much they're losing, when they put money in, when they're losing. We know when they change games, change denominations. So we pick up so much data in real time. When you look at the fact that we've got like almost 5 million players on our database, our algorithms are able to see if that person is having fun or that person is not having fun. Why? It's the same reason. If you remember playing video games when we were a kid, I'm going to say Pac-Man, which dates me like to the 1860s. The only goal of Pac-Man was to learn the pattern. Because when you learned the pattern, you knew what door to go out to, because the ghosts were going the wrong way.
Mhm.
So the thing is when you talk about artificial intelligence, you're only, well, first of all, you're talking about data and you're talking about math, of course, get those out of the way. But what you're talking about is how fast can you detect a pattern, to understand that pattern with a high degree of precision. The higher your degree of precision, the faster you get to take action. So I'll give you an example. On our media screens sitting on the gaming machine, let's say a player is getting themselves into trouble. We can put a message on the screen and say, hey, are you okay? You're out of your normal betting pattern, or you're doing some things that are a little bit strange. Do you need a break? We can turn it up and slow down the clicking on the machine. We can turn it up even faster and saying, we're sorry, we think you're at risk. We've just turned off the machine for 30 minutes. You need to go take a break. When you're ready, come back and play again. We can follow laws like in Japan, Poland, Mexico, where they have very stringent responsible gaming laws. But everything we do is about learning who the avatar is, the player, and applying our algorithms to know them faster than they know themselves. And it's the same type of algorithms applied in a different manner for a promotion, a reward, predictive addiction, or if we're trying to detect if there's a money laundering in the store. So it's the same algorithms that are just configured differently for very positive events or very negative events. And the key is how
Uh,
fast you do it.
exactly. How do you see the gaming industry evolving in terms of ethics and responsibility over the next few years?
Leaps and bounds. I'm in awe to see the discussions in Las Vegas, in Macau, Australia. England deserves a big shout out. In the last 5 years, we've gone from talking about doing these things to doing. The country of Poland blows my mind how aggressively they went towards towards trying to prevent addiction. Japan, it is amazing what they're doing. So when I look at the leaders around the world, Poland is one, Japan is another, Australia, England. When I look at, sorry, I got to mention Mexico because Mexico is the first. When I look at these places around the world, how loud they're getting at players' health, then I have to make a shout out to British Columbia because addiction, it's a bad word. It's a negative word for about 7% of the players in their database. That's the average, what I see. But what about the other 93? How about celebrating their players' health? And the British Columbia Lottery Corporation changed their responsible gaming program to become a players' health program. In other words, we have to promote people gaming in a healthy manner. What a twist they put on it. So when I look at the next 3 years, when we look at the ethics of the gaming industry, backed by a focus on real-time data and predictability, we're in a very exciting moment in history. And now that we're getting artificial, well, not real artificial intelligence, we're getting LLMs, which is generative. Now that we're getting more and more tools, all these tools need is real-time data to do really cool things to protect people so that they can just have more fun without the worry of getting themselves in trouble.
Hmm. Your involvement with the government Blockchain Association highlights your passion for integrating blockchain and AI into gaming. How do you envision these technologies revolutionizing the industry?
Well, I'll take it a lot larger than that. Anything that is not blockchain today is not safe. Anything that is not blockchain, it's not safe. Because if you're running, even if you're running a cloud server, even if it's serverless, stateless, and all the bells and whistles, if you're running on a database that's not using blockchain in some form or fashion, it means you're at risk. So I've been a proponent of blockchain for 2010, 11-ish. I was very thrilled, totally shocked, and humbled to be on the Government Blockchain Association Board of Directors in Washington, D.C. for a few years. And the work that Gerard Daché does as the executive director of that nonprofit would blow your mind. And probably the thing that I'm the most grateful for is to have participated in designing a blockchain standard, a model with 5 levels that was adopted on the United Nations website as their future of the internet. And as I said earlier on, leadership is by example. So, unfortunately for my team, I put Access.ai through the painful process to be the first certified organization of that level 1 standard for the blockchain maturity model, because I wanted to make sure that we were showing the example, because I had the pressure of being a board member. And in today's world, if somebody is doing tech and they don't have somebody specialized in blockchain looking how to put the locks in the right places, it scares the hell out of me. So I have a large passion for that for the very simple reason is data is worthless and even very harmful if it's not integral, and data cannot be integral unless you can prove that it's cyber safe, if that makes sense. And outside of blockchain, I haven't been able to find anything better.
What advice would you give to companies looking to adopt blockchain and AI into their operations, especially in gaming?
Well, leadership is always top down. First of all, if the CEO doesn't know what blockchain is, the team will never understand anything. So my philosophy in life is, well, if we got to do something, I have to do it first. So first of all, learn what blockchain is. When you learn what blockchain is, it usually scares the hell out of you that you don't know what it is and that you're not using it. So my advice is, first of all, it has to become a priority to learn what it is because it is the smartest way to create a cyber safe strategy.
Hmm.
So my advice is always to start learning. I'm shocked in 2025 that we're still talking about learning blockchain. It's kind of like trying to say that, you should lock your house.
Yeah. Um, you've delivered TEDx talks on neuroscience and human behavior, which seems to complement your work in gaming and technology. How do these subjects intersect, and what are the key takeaways you hope audiences gain from your talks?
Well, the key takeaway is I hope they don't boo. Yeah, that's the first takeaway because the two TEDx's I've done, I did one in French in Quebec City, and the second one, believe it or not, I did it in St. John's, Newfoundland, which was very important to me to go home and to deliver it there instead of in some unknown place. Because there were some nuggets in that one that were very important for me to deliver in my homeland. But the thing is if I can zoom up to 40,000 feet right away, there's no doubt in my mind that in my lifetime, there will be an integration between the organic and the synthetic brain. You see what Musk is doing with Neuralink. There's like 10 or 15 other projects ongoing. But the integration between synthetic, which is carbon, and organic, which is human, that integration has started. I've always wanted to learn about myself, learn about humans, learn about breathing, how water, how sugar, how overreacting, how stress. I could go on forever. And that's the reason why I've gone back to school to become a medical doctor in natural medicine, because it's the only place that I could get the level of information. It's called Quantum University to see where that integration is, because there's going to be a day in my lifetime where we're going to have to regulate how human behavior is, but how synthetic behavior is. I don't want to call them robots. I don't want to call them droids or anything, but there's an intersection coming. And I want to make sure I understand as much as I can so that when we get there, I can do what I can to help that phase of where we're going to be as an Earth. I know that sounds a little bit esoteric, but it's funny because it's true.
How do you use your platform as a speaker and leader to inspire innovation and ethical practices across industries?
Well, first of all, I'm from Placentia, Newfoundland, and I'm Tony Collins's nephew. So when I get up on stage, I'm a little bit overbearing, I'm a little bit loud, and I push people to the limit of their comfort zone. And I do it on purpose because you cannot learn if you're in your comfort zone. So, my job when I have the privilege of being on stage is to make sure I can get inside of their heads and I can shake something in there. And I'll either try to excite them or scare them, because that's how you get people out of their dormant phase. You've got to scare or excite. And once I can get them there, it's all about giving them a gift that makes them want to learn more. Because whether I'm on stage for 10 minutes in a TEDx, or whether I'm on stage for an hour in a global keynote somewhere, I know that that time is nothing compared to their journey. So it's all about how can I hit them with something that wakes them up to say, I've got to go dig in here. And when I see their lights come on, it's the biggest privilege that I have as a human being.
Your leadership philosophy emphasizes authenticity and vulnerability. Can you share an
Mhm.
example of where this approach made a significant impact on your team or a project?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's very hard to talk about, but I have a philosophy in life. Never ask me a question because I'll give you the answer. So I was having a very hard moment in my life last summer. Imagine I'm a 57-year-old former Army officer from Newfoundland. In other words, I'm hardcore. I was in front of my management team and we were going through some rough stuff last year. And I just couldn't hold it back. I just totally lost my shit and broke down and started to cry. And I told him exactly how I was feeling, and it was pretty dark how I was feeling. And there's one thing about being vulnerable and authentic. Everybody talks about it, not that many people do it. The reaction that my team had seeing dad lose his shit. And I'm sorry for that word. You might want to cut it out. So I'll even say, dad lose his cookies. It was very humbling for me to see how they became insecure, how they didn't know how to react, how they didn't even want to console me, how they moved away, went into defensive mode. But as my mother taught me, being from Placentia, Newfoundland, and I love to say that, I am who I am. They see, when I'm not happy, my team knows it. It is black and white. I'm not happy. When I'm happy with them, I tell them, you're a genius. I can't believe you did this. My mind is blown. But authenticity and vulnerability comes at a price to everybody, because you have to have the courage as a team to live the wave where everybody's doing this at different times. That I'm blessed with, because my team, even though they don't know how to react when I freak out, as a team together, they hold beautiful space for each other. So vulnerability and authenticity, it's a great concept. Not many people do it the way they should, and they pay a price for it. But people usually tell me, Earle, you're pretty black and white. I go, yep. We know where you stand, and you say what you think. Yep. So that's who I am. That's who I was brought up as. I have zero political bones in my body, and I respect myself because I am who I am. That's what I bring on stage. So when I speak in public, what I hope is people see inside of me, so that what I'm saying comes with an authenticity that I've lived it, I've bled through it, I survived, you can too.
Hmm. In your experience, how can leaders foster an environment of trust and innovation within their organizations?
That's a good one, because once again, that has to go back to one, you need a healthy dose of chaos. I know that's not something you can read about a lot, but if you don't have a healthy dose of chaos, there's no innovation. Innovation doesn't come from processes, it doesn't come from structure, it comes from bending the rules, it comes from coloring outside of the lines. So I can't live in a highly structured environment because if there's a wormhole between point A and B, I'm gone. I'll take the fourth dimension to get there. So I encourage my team to build structure, build process, build communications, but break them every time they can to prove that they've found an idea that works, a process that doesn't work, or an innovation. Because the other thing is it's impossible to be creative sitting at your desk clicking on your backspace button 8 hours a day. Creativity comes taking a walk, drawing on the board, eating pizza with one of the guys or one of the ladies. So creativity obliges a very dynamic environment where you don't have people doing the same thing all the time because they'll go into their limbic brain and they'll just slowly die a very painful creative death. So you've always got to be throwing curveballs at people to make sure that they're out of their comfort zone so that innovation and creativity is a very simple thing to create. It's done in the moment, it's done without planning, and you have to plan to not plan. It's like putting two people next to each other in an airplane going to the same destination that are not supposed to go there. Well, when I do it and they don't know I'm doing it, it's because I want them to spend 8 hours talking to each other. And all of a sudden, they come out of the plane and they're doing something completely in the opposite direction. So you have to create chaos, which is a little bit negative, but sometimes it's very positive. But creativity needs space outside of routine. And they're the things that I literally scream at my team all the time to make sure they're taking time to do nothing. Because where there's nothing, it's called a void. When you have a void, your creative brain will fill it with ideas. Does that make sense?
It does actually. Yeah. Um, Looking to the future, what's next for Access.ai? Are there any new technologies or projects you're particularly excited about?
Well, right now, since 2020, we've rolled out 4 groundbreaking pieces of tech that we're starting to let mature. Probably one of the cool ones is our ad tech. In other words, real-time media streaming. That's part of our strategy to make sure we can talk to the players so that if they're in trouble, we can talk to them. The next big thing for us this year is really rolling out our LLM. In other words, we call it XLM at the company. So it's really taking our trillions of lines of data, trillions, really, and going in a completely different approach than a structured reporting approach and throwing our own LLM over the top so that we'll have our own generative AI system that will be competing with the system to answer questions in a different way than a normal system would. So that's really the biggest thing we're working on, is to make sure that the co-pilots, the Anthropics, the chat GPTs, well, that we have our own for our own ecosystem. That one's a cool one we've been working on for a while, and we're just trying to figure out when is the right time to roll it out.
Looking to the future, oh, let me, I'll edit this too. What legacy do you hope to leave in the gaming industry and beyond?
Well, that's the whole reason I stayed in this industry, because there's a lot of other things that I would love to accomplish before I go back to my permanent address, which is the plot that I bought next to my mom in Newfoundland, so that I'll be buried right next to her. Um, The legacy, and I don't want to say me if you don't mind, but the legacy that my team and I want to leave is that the gaming industry, the land-based gaming industry, is a safe place for entertainment, and it just becomes a small part of the fun economy. You're having fun at a restaurant, you're having fun at a ball game, you're having fun at a casino. Why? Because the intelligence, the predictability we put around the invisible data experience is predicting to make sure you're not harming yourself. Just like you have now auto drive that is always correcting you when you're on the yellow line. I think the legacy that my team would love to leave our industry is that we're the ones that put up those guardrails on the left. The left is, of course, responsible gaming, and the right is predictive money laundering. Those guardrails, we know it's our responsibility, and we're hoping that's the legacy we're going to leave, so that on the highway of gaming, all you see is fun, profit, and happiness without the dangers that we've seen in the past.
Mhm. Earle, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Power Talk today. Your journey from a small town in Newfoundland to leading global innovation is truly inspiring. Your dedication to advancing technology while maintaining a focus on ethics and responsibility is a shining example of leadership in action. Again, thank you for being here.
My extreme pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
And to our audience, I hope you found today's conversation as thought provoking and motivational as I did. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. And if you have any questions for Earle or want to suggest future guests, drop them in the comments below. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations right here on Power Talk. Until next time, I'm Tom Power. Stay curious and keep the conversation going.